name is and this is my podcast, People Matter. Now, it's a very cleverly named podcast. As you would guess, it's all about people. Because I am fascinated with the way that we act and react in times of love and war and coronavirus. So at the moment, we are in unprecedented times. The world has been in pandemic and lots of us have been in lockdown. And in lockdown, what have we reached for? Comfort food. And what's the best part of comfort food? Baking. There's been a huge spike in baking, and to this end, it was only natural that I approach one of my own baking heroes to kick off the program. Nadine Ingram has gone from a dairy farm in the Hunter Valley to Michelin restaurants in London to firmly establish herself in the echelons of Sydney's artisan baking community as the founder and owner of boutique patisserie Flour and Stone in Sydney's Surry Hills. But that's only part of why we're chatting today. When Nadine moved from kitchens into Bourke Street Bakery, she was struck by the fact that she could actually now connect with the customer, something she hadn't been able to do before. And consequently, Nadine believes that baking has become her way to connect with people from the heart. She extends that customer philosophy to family, friends and her team, and I cannot wait to hear more. Welcome to the program, Baking Goddess, Nadine Ingram.
Oh, hello, Lynn. That's very kind, Baking Goddess. I like that.
I get a bit excited, though, when it comes to baking, as you know. Then I have to make sure that I don't talk about baking too much because we're talking about people, but really the two are connected, right?
They are, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I thought I would start just by jumping right in. And I know you worked as a pastry chef in London at places like the Ivy and like of Roche. Was that in the 90s or how long ago was that?
Yes, it was early 90s, 92, 93, 94.
Right.
And then I came home for a little while. But yeah, I jumped over to London when I finished my apprenticeship in the Hunter Valley.
That's an easy transition?
Yeah, well, I thought it would be more difficult than it was. It turns out that as soon as I arrived, I felt I'd come home. I felt I had an instant connection to London, and I felt that it was easier for me to connect with people so far away from home.
Wow.
I felt there wasn't the normal pressures that your family put on you to conform in a certain way. As soon as I went to London, I felt like I could be myself all of a sudden.
Yeah, there's really something to be said for that, about moving away from family and the roles that you play, the dutiful daughter or, the big sister or whatever. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I'm wondering, at that time, I know by your own admission you describe yourself as being a little headstrong. So how did that impact your relationships as a young girl in London working in what I'm assuming were pretty intense circumstances?
Yes, so I am naturally headstrong, and that's genetic. I can't blame all of it on the genes, but certainly when I arrived in London, it wasn't going to pacify me in any way. It was just accelerated, if anything, by the behaviours in the kitchens, the harassment, the verbal abuse.
Wow.
It was heightened, if anything. And I think when you're in those situations, you mirror that behaviour back. And so that did nothing to shape me into a better person. It just made me more aggressive because that kind of behaviour was acceptable.
Yeah, wow, I think that's a really interesting insight. War incites war. So you mentioned harassment. You're talking about sexual harassment?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Physical, verbal, the whole gamut.
Right. You got a story you want to throw our way, just
fun.
to make us feel that we've actually come some distance?
A couple of years ago, I told a story in a Food and Words talk about a colleague of mine, Tracy, who was she was on the sauce section, so she was in the main side of the kitchen. She was stronger than me, I guess, in a lot of ways. Women weren't generally allowed, or women couldn't cook, right? So we were always stuck in the pastry section.
Clear, yeah.
But Tracy had made it to the sauce section, which is in the upper echelons of the kitchen.
I see.
So yeah, she had a incident one afternoon with the sous chef who a spoon had dropped down the back of the bench, and Tracy had to get down on her belly to retrieve it, and the chef had jumped on her back and started thrusting into her. And I saw the whole thing happen and didn't know what to do because I'd never seen anything like that before. And he just got up and really chuffed with himself and went back to the office. And Tracy just left the kitchen, but came back in a couple of hours after her break. It was in the afternoon, just before night service. And yeah, she just came back and everyone carried on as if nothing had happened. And there
Because
was nothing.
at that time, yeah, you just tolerated it. But I just want to say to anybody listening that we actually have come a long way, and a lot of girls in their 20s might think that we haven't, but we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we really have. Well, okay, so you're known to hire a pretty diverse group of people yourself.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about a couple of them?
Well, I've got, there's a business mentor of mine who says I've got the United Nations of a team that I've built along the way, people from all over the world. My two IC, Apurva, who I guess I'm closest to in the kitchen, she's from India. I've got a couple of girls from India, actually. I don't really look back on any given day and think where people are from. It's just personalities, I guess. I like to focus on people, who they are, rather than where they're from.
Is that how you hire, on how you feel about them?
Yeah, people's core values mainly, because you can teach most people anything. It is a lot easier to bake than people give it credit for, and you can teach people skills, but you can't teach them core values.
So I have a friend who lives in an apartment near you guys, and they have this neighbourhood watch thing where they watch the queue and then they send out and go, the queue's short, the queue's short.
Oh, no
it's
way.
Free to go down. Yeah. And so they run down to buy their things then. So what makes, tell me, I mean, I know your food is sublime, but you tell me what makes your little bakery so successful?
I think it's the generosity with which we give it and the abundance of what we're giving. I remember in the beginning, 8 years ago when Flour and Stone started, we were really struggling for the first 18 months. But every day we baked for that counter as if we were baking for a massive crowd. Yeah. And I think it makes a big difference when people come in and they see that abundance and that generosity, and they think there's nothing being held back. And I think that's one of my personal bits of baggage that I dwell on during the day. Don't hold anything back. And if anybody judges me for having held anything back, I get quite upset. So that's just reflected in my counter and the amount of butter and yeah.
We love butter.
Butter.
I'm reminded of I think it was a Facebook post or something I may have seen last year where someone was attacking you for the price of either a croissant or a panna cotta Wellington.
Momo. It was a croissant. He was our best customer ever, as it turned out.
And I saw that generosity in that, because your prices are not at the bottom end of the scale, but there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
like that panna cotta Lamington would feed 4 people.
Yeah,
unless that person is me, and then I have to eat all of it at once.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And whatever it is that we sell at whatever price, I think that there's often the perception that when people are tallying up the cost of that item, they just look at the ingredients. They don't look at the cost of the overheads, the workers' comp, the light bulbs, the pest control treatments that we need to do due diligence on every quarter. To keep our kitchen safe. There's so many other costs that factor into that price.
It was really good to see you come back on that, because you're not the first person to have been accused of pricing things too high, and sometimes people don't see the value in something. I'm thinking about design as a classic. People look at a logo and go, yeah, I could have done that.
I could do that.
Yeah, I could do that. But what they don't get is the hundreds of hours that have gone into understanding the consumer and trying to make your mark before
exactly
going through 20 different things before you get to that. So that was nice to see you come back. So I'm thinking about your team as opposed to, say, teams you've worked in London. What's so special about your team? What's so different?
Well, I like to recruit people that aren't necessarily qualified. I really enjoy seeing that transition from bare basic skills up to, turning croissants out every day, putting them in the oven. That's really satisfying. We've got somebody in the team at the moment who started as a dish hand only a year ago, and he's now baking the croissants.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that is a 9-page recipe, ladies and gentlemen, out of Nadine's book, Flour and Stone, which I have not yet attempted. So that is awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And he's obviously just got a really natural feel for baking.
Yeah.
But previously he was in IT. So he might never have discovered his talent if it hadn't been for Flour and Stone. So there's those sorts of stories all throughout the team. And that's what really drives me forward, because anybody can hire. I think one of the things I don't really appreciate, and one of the things I've experienced in teams before, is that ego of the professional has to try and find his dynamic, his place in the team. And it just causes all sorts of friction. I think it's better, as I said earlier, to employ people on a core values basis and then work with the skills later, because then everybody's come from the same place. They've all come from that bare basic skill level, and nobody knows more than the next person, or
keeps it very equal, and
it does,
I guess able to reduce potential friction, having that equality. I loved reading on your website. Who does your illustrations on your website? Is it
Samantha Denmark?
Yep, give her a shout out, because she does
Samantha's
the most gorgeous.
Amazing. Yeah, she's been working with me for about 11 years now. And she started in my home kitchen in Newtown, and we've moved along together, and she did all the illustrations for my cookbook and still for my branding, and we still work alongside one another.
It's beautiful. I love her work. It's fantastic. And I noticed on the website, because I know that recently you moved, or you didn't move, you expanded up the road. And I love your tagline, here's 43 Riley, here's 53 Riley underneath, so we could all stay together.
So we can all stay together, That was a decision between moving somewhere bigger or staying small. And one day one of the pastry chefs, Georgia, said, "Oh, this is so great, we can all stay together." And I was just like, yes, that is why we need to move into this space. It kind of sealed the deal. So that became our tagline.
Well, it's a really good tagline, that's for sure. All right, let's move to, let me ask you about your customers. Do you have customers that come in? I'm sure you have regulars. Sadly do not live in Sydney, but your regular customers, do they come in like for the same thing every day? Do you have people that do that? People that come in once a week?
Yes, so we have about probably 80% of our customers are regulars. They come in every day, always have done. Some of them 2 or 3 times a day. And then I guess towards the end of the week, we're getting more of a destination tourist feel to our customers.
Yes, as people hear about you. Yeah, the pilgrimage. That's right. The Flour and Stone pilgrimage. Absolutely. Somehow I relate to that everywhere I travel in the world. So you said people come in 2 and 3 times a day. They're not buying cake every time, are they?
No, they'll have breakfast, and then they'll come, they might get a sandwich for lunch, and then in the afternoon they'll come for their afternoon coffee before we close. But yeah, some people do come in 3 times a day. Isolation's put a bit of a dent in that, but
I guess
it hasn't. It's been offset by the fact that we've had more people who live in the area coming in every day. So now we're getting the office workers and the people that live there as well. So isolation hasn't really affected our business much.
Maybe your book sales have gone up as well.
Book sales have gone up,
because
the publisher emailed me to say that people are baking more and
Yeah.
trying that 9-page croissant recipe because they've got the time.
Oh, that's unbelievable. So I know making people happy is what you do. What makes your customers happy? Like, what do they tell you? What do you think drives them when they come into the shop and buy something?
I think at the end of the day, it's still that connection to people. And we got an email from a woman just last week who comes in with her little dog who's quite senior, and the barista and the shop manager always make a point of talking to the little dog and making a fuss over it. And she emailed us to say how much she appreciates that, and she appreciates the friendly service and the fact that she might be invisible to other people throughout the day, but when she comes to Flower and Stone, all of a sudden people notice her.
Oh God, that's that. You care.
Yeah.
I think, we like to do business with people who care about us, and so many people don't. So many people just don't get that, and that line of feeling invisible. You can ask any middle-aged woman that feels exactly the same way. So to feel that someone cares, that's great, Nadine. Is there a way? And I know that you're a modest person, so you might not want to talk about this, but there must be something in the way that you lead that this permeates through the entire team.
Yeah, so I'm very hands-on, and I think having that connection to the team has been crucial to conveying that message of how I want people to be treated when they walk in my door. You can't escape that vision, and you can't escape that's the way I want it to be. And I work with them every day, so they get a feel for that very easily. And if they're not that type of person that wants to give that service, then they usually don't last.
Sure. No, I totally understand. Now, I read somewhere that I know that you believe baking has an impact on the soul. So people, maybe you could be forgiven for thinking that you're all about unicorns and rainbows, but clearly you couldn't have run a successful business on lemon dream cake alone.
No.
So tell me the transition between, from chef to business person, to all-round business person, I should say.
Right. So it hasn't been an easy journey because I think when I came back from London, I was very hardened by that experience. And that was about as far from unicorns and rainbows as you can get. But I was all about, Flower and Stone first became an outlet for me to express myself creatively and connect with the customer. But a lot of the reason why I wanted a business was external, and I had to kind of internalize why I wanted to bake, and that came through a lot of soul searching and trying to find out for me what it was that what it was that did it for me every day. And so that took a couple of years, and trying to calm down after that London experience and not treat people in the same way I'd been treated.
Sounds like you are very self-aware, and when my intention on this podcast, when I say people matter, it also applies to ourselves, because I think it starts with us. Self-awareness is probably the very first thing, and I love what you're saying about it doesn't matter how long it takes really to do the soul searching, to go what floats my boat every day, what am I meant to be doing, what gives me happiness, because when that's happening you will then give it to others. It just
and as a leader you have to know what that is first, because what hope has anybody else got who's working with you to be able to follow your vision if they're following some egotistical external pursuit of money or things that are unimportant, because there's no longevity in that. And once you really drill down into, once I drilled down into what it was that I wanted for the business, it was all down to that human connection. And that resonates with people. They can identify that. They know what that is.
Yeah. It seems like you have succeeded. There's lots of kindness in you, Nadine. Who's someone who's been the kindest to you?
Oh, wow. My publisher, Julie Gibbs, has been really kind to me. She's been a real mentor, kind of almost mother figure for me.
Nice.
Yeah, she's been the kindest to me because she's been able to see my potential and she's really helped me drive that. She sees the flaws as well, but she's gracious enough not to, to appreciate me for them and not hold them against me. Don't
we
love
are
friends like that?
slightly flawed, all of us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, through your I know what I want to ask you about. It was more relationship stuff because through your book, Flower and Stone, I noticed that you refer and introduce us to a lot of your suppliers, like Bob the Eggman and Rabbit Hole Tea.
Yes.
How do you choose your suppliers?
I choose them from the size of the business primarily, how small they are, and I like to have that initial connection with them as well. When we met Amara and Corinne, the girls that own the Rabbit Hole Tea, we met them down at a market stall in Bondi about 8 years ago. Perfect. And we were actually their first wholesale customer. I don't know how many they've got now, but they've got a huge business and they're very successful. But having that initial connection to the people, knowing what drives them and trying to align that with my story as well, so that when it all weaves together, it makes sense.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. So people that align with your values and your story, and I know the story is really important to you. Nadine is a beautiful writer as well. I love the way that you write, Nadine, and I'm sure that your first cookbook is not the last we see of your writing.
Thank you, Lynn.
It's just lovely. Tell me how your husband got the nickname Doughboy.
When I first left Burke Street Bakery, I left there when I was about 7 months pregnant with my second daughter. And I became bored very quickly. I'm not the type of person who can sit
Well, you're bored with your daughter?
I was bored with being pregnant. And so I decided the best thing for that was to start a business when I was 7 months pregnant. So I started a gingerbread business from home. And my husband, gradually the doughs just started getting bigger and bigger, and my husband became the maker of the doughs when he got home in the afternoon. And he used to make these massive doughs in these butcher's tubs, and then he'd set his alarm for early the next morning to get up and fold the flour through.
Well, like at 5 o'clock or something?
2 o'clock.
No.
Yeah. Because you can't let it go too far because then it'll be too cold. So he'd time it on the seasons and the temperature of the dough, and he'd get up and fold the flour through. So it'd be ready at 9 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever it was the next morning when we needed to roll it.
For Madam to get up and just roll and do things like that.
7 months pregnant, Madam.
Oh, get over it. This is the problem with strong women. We expect that you can do everything. Right? You're meant to be able to do everything. Oh, that's great. He sounds like a wonderful man. Is he still Doughboy?
No, he's given his title to somebody else now.
Has he now? Does he play a role in the business, Nadine?
Yeah, he's in the kitchen at the moment, covering one of our chefs who's on holidays. And he has a day job, so.
Oh, does he? Right.
Yeah, so he doesn't work so much in the business anymore. Yeah. But he is a chef, so.
Oh, okay, that's handy.
Yeah, very handy. Yeah.
And I guess so. You've both got this manic life. I know you often are up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. You have he's got a full-time job. You have 2 beautiful girls, Poppy and Ruby, after whom Flower and Stone is named. Very clever and very cute. Like how do you juggle that as a family?
Well, I mean, our daughters are 17 and nearly 14 now, or 18 and 14. Mm-hmm. So they're quite independent and they're headstrong, and they kind of look after themselves nowadays. But along the way, I couldn't have done it without Jonathan, really. I mean, he's been the domestic goddess.
Yeah, right.
Looking after the family and being there for me every step of the way, helping with the business when needed and helping at home as well. Yeah, he's been phenomenal.
Shout out to Jonathan.
Yeah, shout out, Jono.
Shout out to Mr. Flower and Stone. I think it's it's critical, no matter who I talk to, male or female, there's a support person at home.
Yeah,
and they're usually doing two jobs
I
to
think
let the other person.
It's just been a work-life blend. A friend of mine says there's no such thing as work-life balance. If you do something that you love, it's impossible to balance it. You have to weave the work in with the home life and the home life in with work. And both the girls have worked with Flower and Stone. They've been out there at the markets. One of them's working in front of house now.
Nice.
So it is a family business in that aspect as well. But trying to divide the two is impossible. And they've been really up for getting involved in the business, and I think that's been part of its success as well. Understanding where I'm coming from with it.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, when you bake for someone, and I guess I'm talking about, well, either you guys at your level or even home bakers, when you bake for someone, there's an inherent altruism in it, the time, the money, the love that you go to. So I wonder why this is. Do you know, what's your theory behind that? When I give something I bake to someone, I'm so happy to give it to them, and they're always so happy to receive it. What's the theory there? Why do you think cake makes people happy?
Oh, I think you're giving a piece of you. I think from the baker's perspective, it's that the soulfulness of it, that the meditation when you're making it, and the fact that it's bringing you back to your senses. It's such a tactile thing. You can hear it, you can smell it, you can taste it.
Yeah.
And I think that we're so overstimulated through other forms these days that we forget about getting back. Well, I mean, people do it meditating every day, but what I'm trying to say is cake is a meditation.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
To get back to your senses, and once you're back in yourself and becoming aware of what your body's doing, I think that's where the therapy starts. I think that's the good stuff.
So you're making it sound quite meditative, like you leave your body to create this thing. Yeah, okay. I probably haven't reached that level yet, but
because it gives your mind a chance to switch off.
It does.
From all this outside information that's being thrown at us.
I think it's been particularly good. This is why it's been good, particularly during lockdown, during coronavirus time.
Yeah, it's given people a focus.
I know. And people who've never baked before are baking.
I know. How many loaves of bread do you see on Instagram every day?
What's the sourdough thing about?
Suddenly everyone's a baker.
It's nice. It's a wonderful thing. Yeah, so do I. I hope people find lovely things that they've done in lockdown. I think overall it's making us relook at our lives, as we were saying a little bit earlier before we started, kind of resetting the way that we do things.
Yeah, and I hope those things are set in stone. I'm just afraid that when we go back to our out of lockdown lives, everything will just return, because that's human nature. We're just creatures of habit.
I think, I believe it takes 21 days to create a new habit. We've had more than 21 days. So it'll be interesting to see what habits we keep and which ones we throw away.
Yeah.
So I've discovered in lockdown that I'm an introvert living in an extrovert's body, because I'm really happy. Apart from the obvious lack of income, I am really, I've enjoyed this opportunity to go slower and connect.
I think it's not having any judgment placed on you for doing so as well. And I think that's something that happens in society. Everybody's expected to run 1,000,000 miles an hour and keep up. And if they don't, then they're judged for it.
Busyness is a badge of honour.
Sure is. Yeah.
I could not just disagree with that more. But I have been guilty of it in the past. There's no doubt. Nadine, you've got iconic writing on your shop that I believe is from your grandmother's cursive script. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. It is my grandmother's writing. Yeah.
That is such a beautiful story in itself. I believe your grandparents were quite an influence in your life.
Yes, they were. My parents were out working a lot when I was younger, but my grandparents were the constant for me. So they were always there to guide me and listen to me. I think was the most important thing they did for me. They just listened.
Yeah, that's good advice for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I should take that on board. Oh, that's what I've been doing wrong. You never get into trouble for being a good listener, right?
Generally, yes, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think good listening is a wonderful skill to have.
Yeah, it's a virtue, definitely.
And I work on it all the time. Okay, let's finish up. If I asked you for some advice to leaders of teams, what would you say?
I guess I'd say just to stay connected to everybody on an individual level, and try and get a sense of their energy, get a sense for what makes them tick, get a sense for their motivations and their creativity, and then bring that into the team. Just really staying in touch with everybody individual is the most important thing, but then trying to make everybody around them aware of what makes that person tick. And yeah, I guess that's where the personality, the profiles that we've done have really come in handy to get a sense of what makes people tick.
So if I asked you the same thing about family and friends, advice to communicating and connecting with family and friends, would that be similar?
Yes, well, that requires a bit more of a level of empathy because sometimes you don't always know a friend that well. Sometimes they hold things back. But as you know, the people that we work with them more than what we spend time with family, generally, in Australia anyway.
Yeah, we do.
And so it's easy to pick up on the energy of the people that we work with and get a sense of who they are, sometimes more than family and friends. And so we know them better. And family, I guess we do because, well, your children, they're born from you, so you understand them, you understand what they're going through to a certain extent. But with friends, it's harder. So the empathy really has to play a big part there.
It often requires a lot of work. Friendships are hard work. Because we love our friends for who they are. That's what we're supposed to do. But even in the times in which we live, and I'm not talking COVID, I'm talking about our normal manic lives, allowing time to talk on the phone, to catch up, to really spend time with people is challenging sometimes.
Yeah,
so that's why I treasure my friends very much because of the time and effort that's put in.
Yeah, I think once you get a sense of what people's vulnerabilities are, you can kind of play from there a little bit as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Just to be more mindful of how you approach them.
Or you could really have fun with it and just be. Oh, what's happening to me?
You're a sick woman, Lynn.
What is happening to me? All right, I have three questions for you. Three? Let me see. The ancient Egyptians were buried with items they would need in the afterlife. What one item would you want to be buried with you?
Oh, that's really hard. An offset spatula.
I thought about a whisk.
No, an offset spatula, yeah.
Right, okay.
Multi-purpose.
What's the worst thing you've eaten out of politeness?
Oh, snails, probably.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don't like a snail?
I'm not very adventurous with food.
And what makes you roll your eyes every time you hear it?
Some of the memes that my girls come out with because I don't understand them.
Yes, yeah, good point. So it's a parental rolling of the eye.
Yeah. Just throwing it back at them because we've received a few eye rolls in our time, so
I can't imagine. And maybe this won't apply to you. What food have you never eaten but would like to try?
I'd like to try a good ramen because I've been talking with my 2IC this week. We've been debating about how, whether ramen's good or not. I'm not a fan of ramen. My 2IC loves ramen.
Yep.
And I can't find one that I like, but she insists that I just need to keep trying them to find one that's good. I'm like, okay. I'll keep trying them, but I haven't found one yet.
All right, well, let us know when you do. It's been lovely chatting to you, Nadine. It was never going to be a disappointment. I love the way that you care for your team. I love the way that your empathy and your connection just radiate out of your heart through your team into the street, into all those people that you work with. And I'm sure that everyone listening has really enjoyed it as well.
Thanks very much, Lynn.
It's been wonderful. Thank you. Now that restrictions are lifting in many states and governments are saying maybe we're going to be open by July, we've still got lots of people working remotely. And so staying connected is still a little bit of a challenge. So I've got a couple of options for you to consider around my program, Working with People You Just Don't Get. That's pretty much what it says. You do an online profiling tool to discover if you're an apple, mango, lime or banana, and then you've got a whole choice of things that you can do to work with strengths and challenges and understand how to work better with other people, so you've got less stress, greater productivity, better results all around. So I've got a webinar. You can choose a live webinar, a video with a live Zoom after, or post-COVID you might want to hire me for face-to-face or a conference keynote. All of this and more you can find on my website at lynscanella.com.au, where you can also do a short version of the profile to find out just what fruit you are. Now, as this is brand new, I'd love you to subscribe, and I'm on Facebook, Insta and LinkedIn, so the more we connect, the more we connect. Respect, connect and thrive. I'm Lynn Scanella, and this is People Matter.